because man, a lot of people are struggling out there. And I truly believe real estate in general can change somebody's life, and whether that's single family or storage, I've just chosen a different asset class, and I truly believe it doesn't have to be as complicated as people make it out to be. If everything starts with a decision and a commitment and a belief in yourself, and if you decide and commit and you just put the work in, success, I believe, is inevitable. I can't tell you when, but if you commit, you believe, and you just plug into the process, the success, I believe, is inevitable.
Hey, welcome back to another week of the Pete Podcast. I'm your host, John Nolan. We talk about all things REI tech, trends, challenges we're having now. This week, we have a good buddy of mine, one of the nicest humans you will ever meet, Alex Pardo from Storage Wins. Alex, thanks for joining us, man.
John, it's always good to see you, my friend. It's great to connect with you, fellow jiu-jitsu practitioner, real estate investor, and we got a lot of things in common, man. So I'm excited for our conversation today.
Yeah, we do. And I'll kind of take a step back from REI real quick and just say, jiu-jitsu. People think, oh man, jiu-jitsu, that must be like a young guy sport. And then there's two guys with some gray hair going talking about this. Dude, it's awesome going and rolling and challenging ourselves and learning what we can do, and also not just going, oh, I'm X years old, I can't do that anymore. I mean, I roll with my 14-year-old son and he whoops my butt now, but that's all right.
Yeah. You know, I'll quickly mention this. I didn't realize the parallels and the things that I've learned and extracted from challenging myself to learn and practice jiu-jitsu, and how it mirrors life and business. I got into jiu-jitsu because I'm 45 and I have a lot of gray, and I'm like, I want to challenge myself physically. And it's not just physically. I realized that mentally, you know this, we're constantly put in very uncomfortable, bad positions, and it teaches you to like remain calm and think and strategize and game plan. And it's a very humbling sport. And a lot of that translates over into what we all experience in life and business. So I really encourage, whether it's jiu-jitsu or anything, like continue to push yourself regardless of your age, because you're going to learn and grow so much more as a result.
Yep, that is very, very true. And something that people lose sight of is they get too, I want to say, too involved in growing their business or growing their professional life, and they let their personal life slide.
Yeah, man.
And when that happens, it makes it that much tougher to get their professional life to continue to grow. If you improve your personal self, your professional life is going to improve as well.
100%. A coach of mine who I still work with, it's been over a decade, founder of a company called Life and Air. I learned that concept from him early on. It's most people, you look at their calendar in the bank account, and that will tell you what they prioritize. I learned the concept of creating a vision for your life, which is think about what you want your life to look like, and then design a business that enhances and supports that desired lifestyle. Like, in other words, put life first, then business. And so many people, unfortunately, and I've been guilty of this, so I'm not judging, we work so much and we put business first, and then life starts to get affected. So yeah, 100%.
Yep. So you have a great story, and I don't want to try to go down the rabbit hole because you and I could talk forever about your story, but you've made a major shift. You were a single family investor, and now you're in self-storage. Like, what made you even think about making a change like that? Because that could be scary for people.
Yeah, it can be. One of the things that I've been super fortunate with is this mindset that I don't have to have all the answers in order to take some type of action. I'm not looking for perfection, and I think that has served me really well. And so I've made a couple hard shifts and pivots in my business life. And one of those was shutting down a team of 9 where we were wholesaling single family homes in South Florida every single month. To your point, I had been doing that business for 14 years. I knew it really well. But I asked myself, one of the things I share with my daughters, who my oldest just turned 11 today, or she turns 11 today. I talk to them about this concept of like playing the movie forward. Like I tell them, like, if you walked into a movie theater, if that's still a thing, and you're watching a movie of your life unfold, and you got to the end and you felt like you left something, like you didn't play all out, you didn't go for it, then that's a life of regret. And to me, that's like one of the biggest tragedies that I hear when I read books about entrepreneurs, that like they spent so much of their time building something and then they missed the birthdays and the this and the that. I was in single family, ironically, because I wanted to experience more freedom. and all the benefits we love about real estate. And yet for me, I played the wrong game. I was a transaction engineer. I was hopping from wholesaling to fix and flip, and I made a lot of money and I was super blessed. But I got tired, John, of riding the income roller coaster. I got
Yeah.
tired of starting from scratch every single month. And we would have really big 6-figure months, and then the next 2 months would be goose eggs. And I don't blame the model. That was me and a lot of mistakes I made in terms of how I built the business. But I realized that it was a business that was very transactional. It's a marketing and sales business essentially, right? That houses is just a product. And I asked myself that concept of playing the movie forward. I said, if I'm still running this wholesaling operation a year from now, how would I feel? Would I feel like I've gone for it? And I was like, man, I don't want that. And so in 2017, I started buying rentals, thinking that that was going to be my path to freedom. And while I do believe you can achieve wealth building a rental portfolio, if I didn't want 5 tenants and 5 roofs and 5 utility bills and all that, I certainly didn't want 50 or 100. So I quickly said, hey, let's sell off these rentals. I don't believe this is going to be my path for freedom. And fortunately, I was coaching somebody in another mastermind I was running who owned a storage facility. And I really got an inside look, John, into the asset class, and all the reasons that I got into real estate were very much so aligned with the storage asset class. So 2019, I was a member of Collective Genius, a pretty well-known mastermind. And I remember giving a talk in September, and I was like, man, I'm kind of burnt out. Like, I got to be honest with everybody. I don't think I want to keep building and doing what everybody here is doing. And when COVID came, it was an accelerator because mentally I had decided, okay, I'm going to start to unwind this business that I had built. But I didn't know how to do that. And when COVID came, John, I had zero desire to completely turn the ship around and figure out, because we were doing deals belly to belly. We were still doing it the old school way. We weren't doing deals on the phone. And I had no desire to go and figure all that out. And I was like, you know what? This is a perfect time to like start to unwind this thing. So it took me 6 months to make sure my key team members landed on their feet. And it was later that year that I completely focused and shifted into self-storage.
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. There's a couple things that I thought about when I was going through that. And just for devil's advocate, if you don't mind,
Please, by all means, challenge me.
why not with rental with single family rentals, why not have a property manager? Then you're not the one having to deal with it.
I did. I did. But
Sounds like there were some hard parts there.
there were a few. You know what I realized? I think it was my expectations. I don't think I had the right expectations. And again, feel free to challenge me if you have a different perspective. This is what I have come to believe. I'm not saying I'm right. It's just what I believe. And it's always interesting the thoughts we have, if they serve us or bring us down. But I thought building a single family rental portfolio was going to bring me cash flow. What I realized was when I have a maintenance request or a work order, it can wipe out the cash flow for the year, right?
Again,
Furnace,
very easily.
a furnace, a roof, a leak, a this, a that. And what I quickly realized, John, after a couple of years of owning rentals, I'm like, I don't think having a rental portfolio is about the cash flow unless you have significant volume, which I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
What I have come to believe is that a rental portfolio is more about the long-term gains, the appreciation, the tax benefits. That is the impact I believe having a large rental portfolio can provide, not so much the cash flow. But I don't know. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree to a point, a large point. Where a lot of people get caught in that trap is they look at the gross numbers. They say, okay, I'm going to rent this house for $1,500. My payment's going to be $800-900. Hey, I've got $600-700 in cash flow. They're not budgeted in for maintenance. They're not budgeted in for those CapEx things. So whenever we buy a new rental, and we have a good sized portfolio, there's plenty of people with bigger, but good sized portfolio. We always, for our pencil test, we put in numbers for vacancy, numbers for CapEx, numbers for maintenance. That way, those things don't just
sneak up on you.
Yeah, because they will. Oh my goodness, they will. We have a rental the building's like 22 years old, so a fairly new house for us because most of our rentals are older.
Yeah.
Just got a tenant move out, and we went and looked at it, and oh man, the brick is cracked. Have to do a lot of foundation work. It's $5,000 worth of foundation work.
Yeah.
Now, did I have that specific line item in there for happening every X number of years. Not foundation work. It's Oklahoma, so I know it's going to happen at some point, but we
But you have
budget a
reserves
bunch of
account.
dollars a month. Yeah, we have to. You have to.
Super smart. You have to.
And
And
most people don't.
that is the wise way to build a rental portfolio. Like, and I'm not the guy to come on here and like just because I'm in self storage. I mean, I got to this point because of residential. I'm not the guy that's going to be like poo pooing residential and houses. I think it's fantastic. What I what I here's what I wish I knew back in 2020 that I know now that I didn't know. I thought that because I was transitioning from residential to commercial, from single family to storage, I thought I was going to have to learn an entirely new set of skills. What I know now, after being in self storage for 5 years and having done numerous storage deals, is that, brother, all the skill sets that you and I and the people listening have acquired in the single family space, I'm talking about marketing and lead generation. I'm talking about having conversations with owners, acquisitions, dispositions. Like all those skills translate over into self storage. I would say the two areas that are a bit more nuanced and there's a shift is in how we evaluate or what we call underwriting deals.
Mm-hmm.
That's different because in commercial, it's not based on comparable sales like it is in houses. And then obviously the management and operations of storage. Storage is a real business that has the benefits of real estate. To me, storage is more of a business play, not necessarily like a real estate project, if that makes sense.
I think that's a great way to put it because it is a business. And we looked at, before we bought our first rental, Amy and I actually looked at buying a self storage facility here in Oklahoma City. And it ended up not being a good fit. But it very, very, very key difference there. It was, okay, we would be buying a business,
Yes.
not let's acquire rental and we can kind of self-manage for now. Eventually we'll have somebody else manage and do it on this as a side hustle. And so that's a very, very, very good point. Now, a lot of people, when they hear that, they think, oh, business, I'm not a business person. I don't really want to run things.
Yeah.
It's not as hard, I imagine, to run a self-storage facility or multiple as people think.
Yeah.
So what are the things that you kind of guide people to that makes that easier?
Yeah, let me tell you the two most common ways to manage and operate storage facilities remotely. And I think what's important that people understand is that my storage facilities are hundreds of miles away from me. I cannot drive to them unless I want to be in a car for 8 or 9 hours, which I don't. And I don't have any employees. And so when I started to think about, okay, I'm shutting down this wholesaling business, when I started to think about my next step, getting into a business, there was a handful of filters I ran it through. I want a business that doesn't require me to have a big team if I don't choose to. I want a business that I can run and manage remotely. In other words, I could be anywhere and with a cell phone and a laptop, I can manage and run it. I want a business with low headache factor, high profit margins, doesn't require a lot of overhead. Like that was my filter. Storage checked every single one of those boxes. And when I started to learn about storage, what I realized is that there's two different ways that we, people in my space and world, tend to manage facilities. If it's a small storage facility, you're going to have a local boots on the ground person. And then you're going to be, or somebody on your team is going to be responsible for managing that boots on the ground. You're going to likely have a call center, or maybe if it's small, you take the calls yourself in house. And then there's a management software. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is how you can easily manage a small storage facility remotely. Okay. I tend to look at larger facilities, let's say 20,000 to 50,000 net rentable square feet. Why? Because exactly what you asked me about 5 minutes ago. I want to plug in a reputable, knowledgeable third party management company that specializes and focuses on self storage. So I look for larger facilities where the revenue it can take care of the property management, and then we still have a local boots on the ground team member. They have a call center and the management. So it's this three-pronged management system that really, I'll give you an example. A year and a half ago, it was 4 facilities, 104,000 net rentable square feet. I sold a portion of that portfolio and I can give you an update now. But John, if I spent an hour and a half to 2 hours a week on that portfolio, it's probably a lot.
Question for you. You said a few times boots on the ground, but you said you don't have any employees. And for some people, their mind, I'm sure, is going, wait a minute, what's the difference here? Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Good question. My boots on the ground team member is not an employee. They're an independent contractor. So that person, some people might not believe me, and some people might think I'm running like a storage sweatshop. I'll explain it. We pay that boots on the ground team member anywhere between $200 and $600 a month, not a
Okay.
week. $200 to $600 a month. Really, really inexpensive. Now, for context, that person isn't putting more than 10 hours a month into that role. Their job is to go to the storage facility once or twice a week, make sure that the facility's clean. They're picking up trash. They're doing lock audits. If somebody is delinquent on their rent, they're going through the process of making sure that they put an overlock. They take pictures for our auctions, which we do online. Like those are some of the responsibilities of the boots on the ground team member. So that person is not an employee; they're an independent contractor. Again, they get paid between $200 and $600 a month, depending on the size of the facility and the location. And it's a part-time gig for those people. Like
Just gives them a little bit of extra cash.
gives them some extra cash. Like we always look at fire departments, local fire departments, because firefighters are known for having extra side gigs. A lot of firefighters are pretty handy. So we look at our existing customer base and we look at customers that have been there many, many, many years. When we're doing due diligence to buy a storage facility, we have some key conversations with some customers to gauge their interest in wanting to potentially have an extra side income and be the boots on the ground. Or we just place ads on like indeed.com. It's pretty easy, believe it or not, to find a boots on the ground team member.
Nice. Because I'll be honest, that's something that has always kind of scared me of, oh, Lord, I have to find another person I'm going to get off of Craigslist that may or may not do what they're supposed to do. And
Yeah.
everything along those lines. So you have a system for it.
Yeah, we have a process and a system like anything else.
Very, very nice.
Yeah.
Loaded question.
Fine.
Personally loaded. Gated or not gated?
All of my facilities are gated. I have a strong opinion that it's better if it's gated, because if somebody doesn't pay, their code to access the facility stops working. Now you might think to yourself, okay, well, yeah, they could just tail a car in. They can, and occasionally that does happen, but we put an overlock. Now, having said that, I don't have any experience owning and operating storage facilities that are not gated, but I have plenty of friends and I have some coaching clients that have facilities that are not gated. And if it is in a good market, and I'll define what I mean by a good market. If it's in a good market, I think it's perfectly fine. I think you can have a facility that's not gated, provided it's not in a market like where I bought my first and third deal, which I got a few challenging stories from that experience. But my first and third storage deal, John, I bought in a really poor market in Mississippi. To give you an idea, the average medium household income was $26,000 in that market.
Back in 1990, right?
What was that?
Back in 1990, right?
That's what you would think, but no, that was back in 2021.
Oh, goodness.
Now, it's interesting because I made a lot of mistakes on my first storage deal. Fortunately, what saved me was that I bought it right. We've a lot of us have probably heard that you make your money when you buy, you just realize it when you sell. I lived that and experienced it, but I violated the first rule of real estate, which is location, location, location. Storage is no different than residential. You still need to be in a good market. If anything, I would argue it's just as important, if not more, in storage, because you can be the best storage operator in the country, John. But if I drop you into a tough market that the average medium household income is not healthy, where there's high crime, you're going to struggle. Where there's not more demand for storage than there is supply, you're going to struggle no matter how good you are. Conversely, you can be an average operator. And if I put you in a market that is starving for storage, in other words, there's demand for it, and it's a healthy market because of the demographics, you're going to thrive. And man, I struggled from an operations perspective because I had a lot of break-ins. I had people that would cut the fence. I had people that knew the tricks to make the gate stop working so the gate stays open at night.
Oh, goodness.
I had some people living in units. And that was not fun. So man, I experienced some operational headaches, and I asked myself, it's like, okay, well, I got out of rentals and got into storage because I don't want the headaches. What I realized was that I bought in the wrong market. So one thing that is super important for anybody that even considers storage is you have to be in the right markets. The market has to have the right demographics. What I mean by that is we look for average medium household income at least $50,000 annually, if not higher. We want We want to see that there's jobs coming in and growth and people moving into the market. We look at the ratio between the net rentable square footage of storage and the population in a 5 mile radius. We want to make sure that there's demand for the product. Those are the markets to be in. So back to your original question, provided that you're in a market like that, I think it's fine to not necessarily have a gate.
Okay. Just curious, because most of the time, the ones that I see, and it depends on where I'm at in the country, the nicer ones tend to be gated, and they at least have a feeling of security. I
Correct.
I have an information security background, so I can give you all kinds of stuff about security. And most security is just a feeling of being safe. You're not actually safe. It's just deterring people. And so I was just curious about that.
Yeah. I think if
We
you
own
put
one
yourself
storage facility and it's not gated, and it has been challenging at times.
Has it been? Yeah, I would imagine. I haven't had experience operating a facility that's not gated. So I tend to put value when I'm evaluating facilities that do have a gate, because if not, and you feel like it needs it's not a cheap line item, depending on the
No,
frontage, and it's not a cheap line. I mean, it can be very, very expensive. But I like the convenience of it. And to your point, when you put yourself in the shoes of somebody thinking about renting storage, more times than not, here's what they're looking for. They're looking for convenience. Is it close to their house? They're looking for, is it clean and safe, right? Is it gated? Does it have good lighting? Does it have security cameras? Not because that's going to necessarily stop somebody who has bad intentions. And you probably know more about security than most people have. That you've probably forgotten more about security than most people know. But it does give people a feeling of, oh, my stuff's going to be like safe. This is a clean environment. People care. And that's, you want people to have that feeling.
Yeah, you do. And then that kind of, I don't know why that led me to this, but one thing I've heard people debate both ways, and I find it interesting, is, well, self-storage, you're going to have a lot faster turnover. You're going to have a high turnover. You're going to have people that, on the other hand, say people will stay in a storage unit for years just storing their junk that they could easily replace for less than what they've paid for storage.
That's right.
I'm sure it's a mixture, but which way do you think it generally tends to lean?
It's the latter, John. And that's not a self-serving answer. It's the truth. The average length of stay at our facilities right now, the updated numbers, it used to be a little longer, believe it or not. It's north of 2 years. North of
That's
2 years.
really good.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, and there's reasons for that. And I'm certain there's people watching and listening to us right now that are like, yep, I've had this storage unit because I hear it all the time. And there's not a lot of traffic at storage facilities, but think about the pain of disconnect, John. And I know you own a facility, but I don't know if you've rented storage. But if you move all your stuff into a 10 by 20 and you no longer need that, you're probably paying, let's just call a 10 by 20, anywhere between 100 and $200 a month. We're not talking about $3,000 or $4,000 in rent. 100 to $200 a month, most people can float that, right? So they just keep paying it. And then when you think about the process, the time and the energy, maybe some money to move your stuff out, oftentimes people are like, screw it, I'm just going to keep paying it, because you got to eat up an entire weekend. You got to get a box truck or a pickup. You might have to bother some friends and family, or God forbid, get movers. It's just not fun. Nobody wants to move their stuff out of a unit.
No.
And so it's a very sticky product. And people tend to, when they move into storage, they tend to stay and they tend to pay. And obviously, as an operator, we love that.
Yeah, they end up leaving it there. And a lot of times the stuff, at least in my experience, my personal experience, it's stuff that they don't need, but they have some sort of sentimental attachment to.
Yeah, man.
And so that helps as well, because Amy and I have had a storage unit for a long time. It's actually an RV storage.
Okay.
So we got a really, really big area, and we've got a razor in there and all this other stuff. And it's like, man, since a couple $100 a month, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, man, Americans, we just tend to consume things, man. People just buy and buy. That we buy a lot of crap we don't need. I always say, I don't know, my wife, I have 3, 4, 5 Amazon packages at my doorstep every day. I'm like, babe, what are you doing? Like, we don't need this stuff, but there's always a reason for it, obviously. And people are just attached to things, man. Unfortunately, whether, there's some hoarders out there, obviously, but then there's people that just sentimental stuff and they don't want to get rid of it. And think about what happens when the economy contracts. People downsize, and instead of selling their stuff off or getting rid of it, they go rent a storage unit.
Yep. They need to find a place to put it.
That's right.
They find a place to put it.
Yeah.
So If I remember correctly, you and I chatted a little bit before we started. You had a first last week,
I had a what you said
and
last week?
you had a first
Yes.
for yourself last week.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more. You told me a little bit about it, but I'm excited to hear more about it.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier in the podcast how I got exposed to storage because I was coaching somebody in a mastermind I used to run. So I used to run and facilitate along with a friend of mine, another mastermind, and we used to get together 2 times a year. And there's nothing like being in person with people. And when I launched the Storage Wins community, so as you know, John, I have a community where I teach people how to get involved in self-storage, how to find, analyze, fund, buy, and operate storage facilities for cash flow and for long-term wealth building. For 2 years, we meet on Zoom every single week. And the culture of our community is so strong that I had been thinking, like, man, I want to get together in person. The relationships just go to another level when you're able to break bread with somebody. Like you and I experienced that. I knew of you prior. You and I are part of another mastermind, and I had known of you, but I didn't. There wasn't a connection there per se. Because I'd never really like broken bread with you. Not only have we broken bread together, but we've rolled in the mats together. Like, the relationship goes to a new level.
It does.
But I had a vision for this. I didn't want to be in a hotel room. Like, there's a lot of expenses and logistics and planning and prepping to put on an event, and I said, how could I put something on that would be impactful for the members, that would be fun and energizing for me, and would be an experience? And I went back to my coach and friend Steve Cook, who I alluded to earlier, the founder of
Mhm.
Life Inner. He taught me something called vision stacking. Vision stacking is when you have a vision for your life and you say, okay, well, how can I combine? How can I have the best of both worlds? Combine something that's good for others, that's business related, but also checks off this box in terms of experience, family. And I said, hey, I'm going to find a beach house in one of my favorite places in the world, the Keys, the Florida Keys. And so I was able to get a beach house in Key Largo. And I said, I'm going to host our retreat there. So yeah, man, it was 57 days notice. I literally said, it was idea to implementation and execution. And again, I'm more of a ready, fire, aim. Like, I jump off the cliff and build my wings on the way down. Like, that's just how I'm wired. And you might think, Alex, putting on an event in less than 2 months, like that's
It's a
lunacy.
lot of
Why?
work.
It's a lot of work. Like, why would you do that? And I'm like, man, I remember I reached out to my assistant, Cynthia, and I'm like, hey, we're going to host our first retreat, a 2-day event at this beach house in 58 days. And she's like, what? I'm like, let's do it. Let's make it happen. So, man, I announced it to the community. We got 21 people that came in from different parts of the country. We were in a world-class setting, again, at a private beach house. And it was just impactful, man, to see how people came together so quickly, the energy and excitement. Some people have to reset. Some people are like, I mean, we have somebody that literally just went under contract as a result of being at that event. I was sharing with you before we started recording. One of my coaching clients is a friend of Emmitt Smith, NFL's all-time leading rusher. I think 3-time Super Bowl champion. Used to
Oh
play
yeah.
for the Dallas Cowboys. And at a conversation at lunch at the retreat, said, "Hey," he was talking to another member. He says, I want to introduce you to one of my clients that I think you could help." Next week, this guy shows up to some corporate building in Dallas, Texas, and he's meeting with Emma Smith. They spent 7 hours together, had dinner, and now they're talking about going into business together. So those are the things that happen with proximity. When you're
Mhm.
in the right community, when you're in the right environment with the right people, synergies tend to happen. You find your tribe, and that's how I think you can multiply and make 1 + 1 = 11. So yeah, man, incredible experience. It was fun. It was energizing. Got the beach house for the week, did the retreat for 2.5 days, and then got to enjoy the house with the family the rest of the week. So
That's the
that's an example of vision stacking.
awesome. Awesome. That's great. Yeah, holding any type of event, people who do them know how much work they are. And I feel for them because it is an immense amount of work. But on the flip side, it can be extremely rewarding, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, man.
Um, so,
Yeah,
and I think
for
you're
sure.
one of those that really gets a lot of personal satisfaction out of seeing people get professional success through your help. Uh,
That's probably the biggest compliment you could give me, John. That because we didn't talk about that, but I'm guessing you've seen something in me that comes through in an authentic and genuine way. And I do, man. I have a genuine desire to want to see people win. Because man, a lot of people are struggling out there, and I truly believe real estate in general can change somebody's life. And whether that's single family or storage, I've just chosen a different asset class, and I truly believe it doesn't have to be as complicated as people make it out to be. If everything starts with a decision and a commitment and a belief in yourself. And if you decide and commit and you just put the work in, success, I believe, is inevitable. I can't tell you when, but if you commit, you believe, and you just plug into the process, the success, I believe, is inevitable.
Yep. I love it. I love it. And no blown smoke there. I am the personality that is very leery of people who mentor and coach, because there's good ones and there's
Sure.
not good ones.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're just genuinely authentic. So that's something that I've always admired since
I appreciate
I
that,
became
man.
aware
It
of
was a
you.
lot.
So,
Thank you.
um, any before we finish here, actually, you know what? I have one question.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna start this on this. I was thinking about this morning.
Okay.
What's the biggest professional mistake you've ever made?
That's an easy one. It took me a second to think about it, and then I was like, "Duh, Alex." Man, you may have opened up a can of worms. I'll keep it as brief and short as possible here.
Okay.
Let me tell you the mistake, and then I can, if you want me to get into a little bit of the backstory, I can. But I got into business in late 2005, so I've been at this real estate game for a minute. Um, First person in my family to get into business. I didn't have a playbook or anything like that. I didn't hire a coach or a mentor right out of the gate, which was a mistake. But I got into business late 2005, and I hired a bookkeeper about a year to a year and a half later, late 2006, beginning 2007. And I didn't know how to run a business, John. I just didn't.
Mhm.
I was interested in doing real estate deals. I wasn't interested in doing bookkeeping and filing taxes and all the stuff that I knew I had to do, but
Mhm.
I didn't know what to do. So I hired a bookkeeper, and I completely abdicated all the
Mhm.
financial responsibilities to him. And you're smiling because you probably already know what's coming.
Mhm.
And I thought, like an idiot, because I thought that not only was this person responsible for doing my books, but they were going to be filing my taxes. Fast forward to 2009. Okay. 2009. Yeah. I'm living in an apartment in a part of Miami called Brickell, and I go down to the mailbox, go back up to the ninth floor where my unit was. I threw the mail on the counter, and you ever remember a moment in your life where you get this like terrible gut feeling about something that's about to happen? I still feel it, like emotionally and physically. It's like happening in my
Feel it in
belly
your
right
gut.
now as I talk about it. But there was about an envelope, I don't know, man, half an inch to three-quarters of an inch thick with a green certified sticker on the outside, Internal Revenue Service. Super long story short, brother, I owed 2006, 2007, 2008 taxes. And obviously, this was probably March, April of 2009. So I wasn't getting ready to file. It was to the tune of about 130 grand that I owed the IRS. Now, again, 2009, the crash just happened. So I wasn't
Mhm.
doing well in real estate. I wasn't making nearly the money I was making in '06, '07, and I didn't have it. And man, that began a journey where I was in denial. I was upset. I was angry. I was pointing the finger and blaming versus like owning and accepting responsibility. I considered bankruptcy. You know, here I am. I don't know, what was I, 27, 28? I considered it. I even met with a BK attorney, and that person gave me a gift. I was hesitating to move forward and pay. And he told me, this is your only and best path forward. You're not going to be able to pay this off. He challenged me basically. He told me I wasn't going to be able to do it. And I didn't say F you, but I fought it. I walked out of the office. I hired a coach, and happy to say that over a 3-year period, not only did I pay off the IRS everything I owed them, but I took care of about 40 grand in credit card debt as well. And that taught me a super, super
Good.
valuable lesson.
Good. Yeah, that would be a very humbling experience for anybody and very scary for most people to even share.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing that. And actually, the reason why I smiled initially was when you said the word abdicate,
Hmm.
because very often that's something I've been guilty of. We hire somebody, okay, take care of this. And instead of keeping an eye on it and actually delegating it, we don't realize, most people don't know what abdicating is. we abdicate it when it's just, okay, it's out of sight, out of mind. They're taking
Yep.
care of it. You
Yep.
still, especially as an entrepreneur, we're responsible for those things.
At the end of the day, we're responsible. You got to look in the mirror. And look, you brought up property management. Like, just because you hire a property manager, don't abdicate the responsibility of property management to them. That's a responsibility, but it's your responsibility to manage the property manager, because at the end of the day, the success or the failures of the business or whatever we decide to do is with you. It's not with anybody else. You chose to hire
Right.
that property manager, that bookkeeper, that person. If they fail, it's because you failed them.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Well, Alex, any parting thoughts or words or anything you'd like to share with the community?
You know, I have a lot of admiration for people that want to grow. Obviously, anybody that's watching and listening and that follows you, John, it's because you put out great information, because they want to learn and grow. But the best thing you can do is just take one or two things that you heard on this podcast or video, or just whenever you consume information, what's the one nugget that resonated with you, and speed of implementation? How quickly can you just apply that? Even if you fail, you're going to learn a lot more by the process than just like feeling good because, okay, great, I consumed some information, but how is that information going to impact your life? So whether it's thinking about self-storage, or whether it's about stop abdicating responsibilities, or whatever resonated with you today, and hopefully at least something did, apply it to your life. And then that's how you continue to elevate, learn, and grow.
Awesome. I love it, man. I love it. So if they want to follow you for, if they're interested in storage or just they love your mindset, how do they do that? Where do they need to reach
Yeah,
out to
a
at?
couple different places. I put a lot of content about self storage on my YouTube channel. So if you just look up Alex Pardo, my name on YouTube, you should find it. The Storage Wins podcast. I put out a couple podcasts every single week about self storage. In fact, we're in the middle of season 2, where I'm literally coaching somebody with no job, no money, and the goal of the season is to see if I can help him buy his first storage facility. So it's kind of been interesting. He just had a baby, so there's a lot of dynamics to the story. So I would encourage people to check that out either on YouTube or the Storage Wins podcast.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Alex, my friend, I appreciate it. And hey, y'all come back next week. We're going to have some amazing guests. Been working with some awesome people, get this stuff set up. But very, very, very thankful to have Alex on this week. Alex,
Appreciate you.
talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye.